So I really didn't anticipate making this video because I'm all sweaty and greasy and I really need to shower, and I'm also moving out right now, so I don't have my good microphone ready and I don't have anything set up for the camera, which is why it's on top of the speaker here. And I just really wasn't planning on making a video until I got home. I know I still need to make my Infinity War video and I want to make a video about Deadpool, but I want to see that again first. But I felt that I was obligated to make a video about Solo because I just saw it. I saw it like maybe 2 hours ago at this point, something like that. And oh my god, it was not good. It was really, really not good. In my opinion, it was possibly the worst Star Wars film for a couple of reasons. And like, look, I know it's probably technically better than most, if not all, of the prequels, just because of like filmmaking aspects that the prequels are really bad at, especially like CGI and that kind of stuff. But in my opinion, this was like the most heartless, boring, dull, unimportant Star Wars movie that there is. I'm going to try to keep this mostly spoiler free, or when I do spoilers I'll let you know, but I shouldn't need too many to talk about why I think this movie is bad. You know, I think it's a nice change of pace for this channel. So far I've only reviewed movies that I actually like a lot, and of course, as always, if you like this movie, whatever. But I think this movie, at its core, the best word I can describe it with is lame. Solo loves to abandon all interest that could be gathered from any scene or any character development and just move on to things that we don't care about, or keep shoving in more references. Some of the main parts of this was when Han first met back up with his girlfriend, I forget her name, and every single question is like, how did you escape? I didn't. Okay, continue this thought process. But every single question that Han gets like a shitty answer for, the girl just like, oh, I'm not. And then he goes, well, alright, and they don't follow through with that at all. And I know that's so we can get some kind of reveal later, but it's like the most obvious stupid thing that it could possibly be. A lot of this movie is just the movie saying, just sit here and eat these references, dumbasses. Like the dice that they had to show like 50 million times for us to understand, like, oh, these are Han's special dice, and like the blaster, and with Chewbacca, like, I'm gonna need a nickname for you. Like, okay, just say it. Don't say that you're gonna need a nickname for him. I actually don't know if Ron Howard was a writer on this or if there's other writers, but whatever writers this movie had should feel embarrassed, because it was awful, even compared to like other big blockbuster movies. There's so many references and callbacks that don't work. The ones that I think do work are learning why Lando says Han. I thought that was pretty funny, and that's like a very friend thing to do, to take a mistake that you made one time and just basically bash on you for it the rest of your life. So I did like that. The ripping off arms thing was kind of fine, funny. Oh, there was Han saying, I have a good feeling about this. I thought that was a fun little twist. I mean, I know it's in the trailers, but like, it was fine. Other than that, all the references were just like annoying and overplayed. The girlfriend sucked. Beckett, the traitor dude, was like lame, and any chance that we had to like him was undercut by the end of the movie. The Freedom Fighter droid was really lame and cliche and just had some really not funny dialogue. There's so much of this movie where, like I said, it's like a heartless cash grab where they're just like, this is what people want to see in a movie. Honestly, I think Chewie was the best character in this movie, because I actually liked how him and Han met. I like that he's got some kind of terror to him. There's some kind of like dark backstory to him. Also, how many people has he eaten? Because he eats people, I guess, apparently. But that's another interesting thing that this movie's like, no, we don't want to talk about that. It's like, what do you mean? So Chewie has a really cool, interesting backstory. A lot of the Wookiees have been enslaved, and then we get a payoff for that later where he sees the Wookiees and he chooses to potentially miss out on this giant opportunity so that he can help them. It's like, that's great. That's exactly what Chewbacca should be doing. And then later when they're about to leave, the Wookiee's like, yo dude, come with us. And Chewbacca's like, no, I've made a friend. He helped me escape like I helped you escape. I need to be loyal to him. At least that's what I wrote into that. It's like, that's great. I think Chewbacca was like the best part of this movie. And I liked the brief glimpses of like the animosity. They should have done more of that. I want to see Chewbacca rip people apart and eat people, but this movie isn't interested in showing us anything worthwhile. I think the actor for Han was better than I expect him to be, but I still don't believe him as Han Solo whatsoever. He's too much like of a little baby boy, and a lot of his humor was like, that's modern humor. That's not what Han is all about. There's too much sympathy for like really shitty people, like the traitor dude Beckett. Okay, spoiler. The traitor dude, when Han shoots him at the end, why does he run over to him? And then the guy's like, yeah, I would have shot you. It's like, okay, that's why I shot you. That's why you're dying right now, asshole. And then when we find out, I guess spoiler again, but like the people who they're working with, the Crimson whatever, the Crimson Shins, we find out that they're like awful people who cut tongues out and they're like imperialist assholes. And it's like, okay, we didn't think that they were a charity. We knew that they were bad people. Are we supposed to be shocked with how bad people they are? Like, what did you want us to get out of this reveal? Yeah, of course they're bad people. And Han is like, oh, I'm not a good person. I mean, in comparison to those guys, definitely you are. Also, what a lame reveal. The trailer's like, I know what you really are. And I was like, oh, does he have some kind of hidden force things? Is there something with the dice? It's like, you're a good person, or you're a good guy. It's like, go to hell. Lots of really dumb editing or like shot choices in this. Some things were either too fast to digest, like Han's whole thing of like, oh, I'm gonna do this move that somebody did back at home and he died for it. Where I think what happened is he skidded on the asteroid and a chunk killed the pilot chasing them, and then the ship blew up. I think that's what happened. The editing was so bad there that like I wasn't super sure. Or it lingers on these really dumb long shots of like, I guess they think the audience is supposed to be like, whoa, but it's like, no, this is nothing. Like when Maeve from Westworld and Beckett make out for like a solid 5 seconds on screen, and it's like, what are we getting out of this? That they love each other? I mean, that's obvious. And then there's the scene where I screw saying spoilers. There's only one major spoiler that I want to keep quiet until later. Everything else, I just don't feel this movie warrants the secrecy. So the Marauder leader is like this young girl, and she takes off her helmet, and it sits on it like we're supposed to be stunned, like, or it's supposed to be some really deep commentary or something like that, but it's nothing. It sits there for like a solid 10 seconds. It's like, okay, we get it. She's like a kid. That's kind of strange compared to what we think that these Marauders are. Whatever, moving on. I can see what this movie is expecting the audience to do, and I'm offended with how much it's underestimating us. There are a couple cool shots, especially with the whole Kessel Run, or just generally when there's moments where the subject would take up like a very, very small percent of the screen. Like there's one where it's like, or it's Han and Beckett, and they're just kind of standing there in the snow at the very bottom, and it's like this massive shot. Or when the Falcon's like this small, and then the creature, or the Maul is like this big over here. That was kind of cool. Otherwise, I didn't think the look of this movie was great. The CG was like okay. I thought that Four Arms dude was like an interesting kind of okay character until they killed him off randomly. Donald Glover, look, I love the guy, but I don't know if he played Lando as he should have been played. Because I think there was a lot of cool little moments that were okay, like the whole video diary thing. That was funny. I appreciated that. But also I've always thought of Lando as more boisterous than suave. And also that's like the main word that I can think of to describe Lando as boisterous. So when he's like coming off this cool, smooth guy, it's like that's not what Lando is. At least that's not how I've always thought of him. Also, do he and the robot have sex? That's another interesting thing that they're like, nope, not important. Or they like tried to joke about it, but oh my god, she was like not funny at all. I think my biggest problem with this movie is that everyone's motivations are nothing. Like Han's motivation starting off is that he wants to be a pilot so that he can get a ship and he can go back and get his girlfriend back. But then the girlfriend is just randomly just happens to be where he's going, and from that point on it's just kind of like I mean, he could have left at that exact moment. He could have been like, I'll get out of here. But I guess hypothetically he wants to, like, he'll do whatever to make sure this girl gets out with him, and he fails at that, which is like, that's good as like a narrative thing. It's good that he doesn't like completely succeed, but his motivations are so kind of like eh. And then at the very end, I get that he's supposed to be like this harder kind of person at the end of it all, but then he like gives so much money to the growing rebellion, and it's like, would he really do that at this point? I feel like he would just take the money and go. Lando's motivations or whatever, he just kind of wants money and to not die. The girl's motivations are really strange because she is evil at the end of the day. Like, she's down for working with Spoiler Man, who I'll talk about later, I guess, even though her like captor husband is dead. I don't know, that was really weird. Oh, I forgot to talk about him. Paul Bettany as this guy was actually pretty cool. He might have been my favorite actor playing a role in this movie. I thought that he was like not too bad. Chewie's motivations are, again, pretty firm. I think he's the best character. He wants things to be free. Basically, anything that the character of the girl robot should have been doing, Chewie should have been doing. Because, if anything, he's the freedom fighter of the group. And this robot's just, like, supposed to be like, oh, we need to make a robot to make jokes and sell toys or something. But it just is completely worthless. And then the traitor guy, like I said, any attempt to like him is thwarted because he's just an asshole who will do whatever he needs to survive. And then they expect us to be sad when he's dying. Like, no, that's not how that works. The music is also like, none of the original composition is memorable at all. And then when they pull themes from other music, it's kind of just like, whatever, it's fine. Definitely missing John Williams on this one. One major rewrite that I would do that I know, like, just right off the top of my head is that the end, it should be the two facing off, Han and Beckett, and then Han sees the girl leave, and that basically just completely breaks his spirit. So before, as the guy's monologuing on about trusting other people, Han shoots him, dude dies, no extended kind of like, oh, I'll never get to play this instrument now. Dude's dead on the stand, and like, that's it. Han takes the money, he leaves. Now he's like a cold badass. That's how that scene should have gone down. So the big spoiler, again, very big spoiler, I guess. It's kind of more of like a cameo, but Darth Maul is in this movie. And I checked, I asked to see if it fit the canon. I know that he's a big part in Clone Wars and Rebels, and I was told that it fits, but he didn't really need to be in this movie, and he looks kind of weird compared to how he does in Phantom Menace. I don't know, it was just kind of like, whatever. It had no impact on me. So to close up, I want to compare this movie to a couple other Star Wars movies, and then to Infinity War, because, spoiler warning for my Infinity War video, I think Infinity War is amazing. So first, to look at the other Star Wars movies and why I think this is one of the worst. It's definitely worse than the entire original trilogy, which has amazing effects, especially for the time. It has great world building, great subtlety. I think all the characters and their growth is like pretty interesting. Again, I'm not as big on the original trilogy as other people, but I can still respect what it's doing. Then you have the new movies. Force Awakens, I think visually is one of my favorite Star Wars. It's either that or Rogue One. It's very grounded, very gritty and dirty, but at the same time it's still very futuristic. And I think that is super cool. I also am invested in the characters in that, especially Finn, and I think that the music is great, the effects are great, the pacing is great. I think that's such an enjoyable movie. Rogue One, I know, is very weak in the character department. I know that there's no real development. The characters are very serviceable and like one track, they have one goal and that's it. But I think what that movie lacks in character and growth, it makes up for in action and effects, and the last 20 minutes or so of that movie are like amazing. It's like some of my favorite parts of the whole Star Wars universe. And then there's Last Jedi. I already made a video about that, but summary, I like that movie a lot because I think it's interesting and has some interesting themes. I like the growth of Kylo and Rey. I think Luke plays very well in that movie. I think that basically the original trilogy and the 3 new movies beside this all have way more to offer than this, which has like no greater interesting themes, no subtlety or deeper context to look into. It's it's very much just what you see is what you get, or if you get the references, good for you. And then we get to the prequels, which I know are bad. Like, everyone knows they're bad at this point. That's why I'm not going to spend too much time talking about them. But at least they have some scenes that are good, or at least sometimes they're so bad that they're funny. Or at least they expand on the lore instead of just continuing to reference it, or think that showing us what happened in the lore makes it any more interesting. The only time I really felt that worked was finding out kind of what like those slave camps looked like. The Kessel Run was whatever, and then how he got the blaster and the dice and all that, that was just boring and lame to me. And then let's compare that to another majorly referential movie, Infinity War. Infinity War, while it relies heavily on 10 years of story before that, just like these Star Wars movies kind of rely on like 30 years of story, 40 years of story. Infinity War is still very much its own thing. I've seen it with a variety of people who have varying interests in the MCU, and everyone was able to enjoy it or at least get something out of it and know what was going on and be entertained. The revelations of Infinity War are shocking because we have built up a certain level of knowledge and now this is building on it. And I think that everything in Infinity War gets some kind of payoff or is leading to the greater payoff in Avengers 4. Nothing in this movie builds to anything. It's a constant flat line of just like supposed to be exciting, supposed to be entertaining and funny, but then also supposed to get real at times, and it just completely fails at all of that. I truthfully would not recommend this movie except if you are a diehard Star Wars fan. Even then, I think there's a chance that you will not like this movie. I think this is the movie that everyone has been saying that all of the new Star Wars movies are, but now I finally agree that it's just a boring cash grab that no one asked for. Sorry if this was kind of incoherent. It's 3 a.m. and I wrote a really vague script and I just wanted to complain about this movie basically because I was surprised how much I did not like this movie. It was just boring. Don't see this movie. I'll make my Infinity War and Deadpool reviews soon. My EP will be coming out probably within the next 2 weeks. And yeah, I don't know. Solo sucked.